The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom, and enjoy this bonus episode of Podcasting After Dark.
Hey everybody, co-host Corey here with another solo video game review that I know you guys all love. Well, I love doing them, so I'm hoping you're enjoying them as well. This time, I am going to be talking about Aliens Dark Descent 2023. This game actually just came out about a month and a half ago of this recording, so it's still pretty fresh out there, so hopefully this maybe will help you guys, somebody out there, decide whether or not they want to buy the game or not. So, we'll see. But before we jump into it, I wanted to really quickly say thank you to all of our Patreon listeners. We really appreciate the love and support that you guys give us over on that platform, and obviously it helps keep the lights on and everything, and really appreciate it. If you're listening to this and you're looking for our Patreon page, it's patreon.com/podcastingafterdark, but you can find that link and every link to all the podcatchers out there. You can find our merch store, all of our episodes, our interviews, everything, yada yada yada. You can find everything on our website, podcastingafterdark.com. That's podcastingafterdark.com. And like I said, you can find our merch store. We have shirts over there. Lots of shirts, actually. Quite a few of them were designed by me. So if you want to support the show and you're not a fan of Patreon or something, then feel free to pick up some merch, or feel free to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That really helps. I mean, really does. So, all right, well, let's get into Aliens Dark Descent. It is a real-time strategy game developed by Tindalos Interactive and published by Focus Entertainment. So, right away, I want to address what kind of game this is. If you ever played XCOM, or probably more accurately, Syndicate on the PC, and I think it was on the PlayStation way back in the day, it's more akin to that. But if you've ever played XCOM, you have a basis of understanding of what kind of game this is. It's not a third-person shooter or anything like that. The camera's not down like over the shoulder of your Colonial Marine or anything. It's up in the air, and you can go up really high, or you can kind of bring the camera down in a little bit, but you're always controlling a squad of Colonial Marines. They range from 4 to 5 later on in the game. You control a squad of them by basically moving the cursor around the screen or around the map and telling them to go there. You don't control an individual Marine. You don't have one Marine go over here, another Marine go over there. They all kind of work together as a unit, but they're smart. They know what to do, and you don't, you never feel like you're hampered by the fact that you can't control them individually. They go for cover on their own, depending on where you put them. They hold their ground. You can, tell them to, hold an area and stuff like that, and defend an area and things like that. And I'll get into different classes of your Marines in a little bit, but I just really wanted, the listeners, you all, to understand what kind of game this is at first, right out of the gate. And like I said, it's a real-time strategy game, whereas XCOM is a turn-based strategy game. So, you basically, in XCOM, there's 2 teams. There's you, and then you're fighting the computer. You move your characters, you give them actions, then, they do it, and then you sit there while the computer does the same thing, and you can't control it. Here, you are controlling everything in real time, but you do have the option to slow down time or pause time completely and issue orders and kind of figure things out, if you want. I do recommend the game starts out with slow time as the default setting. I highly recommend to change it in the settings to pause time whenever you bring up your action menu, because things happen at such a fast rate that it's overwhelming sometimes, especially when you have a lot of actions to choose from. So before I get into all that, let's set up the story. So this takes place in the Aliens universe. It is Colonial Marine centric, which is why I personally love it. If you listen to my Aliens Fireteam Elite review, you know that, and if you've been a listener of the show, you know that I'm a big, big fan of Colonial Marines. Like, you all know, Star Wars is life, but Aliens is my favorite movie of all time. And the main reason for that as a kid were the Colonial Marines. I love them. I love the dropship. I love the APC. I love the pulse rifle, the machine gun, everything, the smart gun, all of it. The armor, Colonial Marine armor. Oh, love it. Love every bit of the Aliens Colonial Marine universe. So I really don't want to give much away about the story because, it does have some interesting aspects of it, and I don't want to kind of spoil those for anybody who are interested in the story. So I'll do a very light setup, and you don't really play as any particular character, and I'll get into that. But that being said, there are characters that you're going to sort of connect with and are sort of the main characters of the story. So you kind of start with a Weyland-Yutani, just low-level, a company person running a space station. Her name is Mako Hayes. And through a series of events, she has to initiate an orbital lockdown of basically the space station, the planet below, and any other ships that are caught in the orbit are going to get grounded because of this action. Now, of course, this action happens because a bunch of xenomorph cultists have basically brought xenomorphs into the mix on this planet and everything like that. And this is in the time of the Aliens timeline where not much is known about the xenomorphs. It's kind of new to these people. Whereas later on with like Aliens Fireteam Elite, that's supposed to take place later in the timeline, the xenomorphs are kind of known and whatnot. And, the Marines understand them and things like that. Whereas here it's still kind of new and they're not quite sure what these things are, but clearly other people in the Weyland-Yutani, universe and the corporation do. And so there's this whole cult angle happens. And then basically because of this planetary quarantine, there's these defense, satellites with missiles and everything that basically are aimed at the planet, like sort of at the planet. And any ships that are coming out or orbiting it get shot down. So there happened to be a Colonial Marine ship in orbit, the Ortago, and it goes down, and through the story and everything, Mako kind of goes onto that ship and it crash lands and everything. And then that ship on the planet becomes your base of operations. Again, if you've played XCOM, you understand the base of operations aspect. In XCOM, you can kind of like upgrade your base. You can't really do that in here, but of course you have access to your med bay. You have access to your tech. You can research new technology. You can outfit your Marines and stuff like that. You can recruit new Marines. You can train them. If they get damaged or anything, or hurt, they can go into the med bay, but they can also get psychological damage. They can get trauma. So they have to go into do psychiatry and stuff like that, which is interesting. So story-wise, the setup is basically just there to get you onto the planet and sort of give you something to do, give you, things to go after. There is a broader story. You're the sergeant that sort of is in charge of the Ortago, Sergeant Jonas Harper. There's this psychic connection that he has with the aliens. I'm not in love with that aspect of the story, but it does play out and it does kind of drive the narrative a little bit. There's multiple people involved. There's these xenomorph cultists. There's, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, which, that means that as you're playing this game, you're not just fighting xenomorphs in their various forms. You have, drones like you saw in Alien. You have warriors like you see in Aliens. You have runners, like you see in Alien 3, and obviously all these you can pretty much assume what they can do. But then there's ones that actually showed up in Aliens Fireteam Elite, like the Praetorian and the Crusher. There's like these level 2 xenomorphs that you can encounter that are a bit tougher. And of course, there's queens too. But not just all that, you actually have to fight against cultists who have access to guns, and also Weyland-Yutani mercenaries who, have pulse rifles. I don't think they actually have any smart machine guns, but they do have sentry turrets that they can set up as well. And it's cool because you see them, land in a Colonial Marine dropship, the Cheyenne UD4 dropship. But theirs is like painted like white with like some yellow accent, and because they're like, Weyland-Yutani mercenaries. That's kind of cool. I like that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that really brings me back to it and really enjoying the game, like the little, the nitty gritty of it all. So another aspect that the story sort of provides is you have two things going against you. So, you do a mission, you go out and do a mission, come back to the base, and that's a day. In order to do the next mission, you have to jump ahead a day. A couple of things will factor in because of that. A negative, when you jump days, a negative is the planetary infestation level goes up. So every time you go back to a mission or an area, it will become harder. At some point in the story, there becomes a doomsday clock that starts counting down. I think it's like 20 days or something. And so you essentially have to beat the game by that point. Otherwise, you're dead. Everything, the planet gets, sanitized. And if you're still on it, you're dead. So you have to beat the game by that point. Now, why days matter, say a couple of your favorite Marines are wounded, and it's going to take them a couple days to recover. You can skip those days. You can just, hold down, skip those days, and they will recover and, all that kind of stuff. But, you're now you have 2 less days or 3 less days closer to the doomsday clock, going down. And like I said, that's something that happens about halfway through, maybe 2/3 of the way through. And you'll be prepared by then. Before the doomsday clock happens, you can go and take as much time as you want. The planetary infestation kind of maxes out at 5, so it doesn't really matter that much, to be honest with you. So I would recommend when you play it before the doomsday clock comes on, take as much time as possible to really beef up your Marines and everything and explore the different stages. So 2 things. The stages you're going to be exploring are pretty big, bigger than a typical XCOM stage. You can go back to them multiple times. So you go to, say, a planetary docks, and it looks like what you think it's going to look like in an Aliens movie. It's all rainy and muddy and stuff like that. Has the typical, processor, atmospheric processor, everything you were expecting from Aliens that you see in Aliens at Hadley's Hope. Now, the cool thing is, the idea is that this colony's been there longer, so like grass and stuff is actually starting to grow, and you get to see maybe, what Hadley's Hope would have looked like, had it not been destroyed by Ripley and the gang. But the stages are big. They have a lot of hidden areas. You can't see areas until you actually get there, so they're kind of hidden on your map by like a fog of war type of thing. You understand that if you play XCOM as well and Command and Conquer and stuff. It just means you as the player can't see what's in those rooms or in that area until you actually send your Marines there. You can do collectibles, you can collect ammo, you can collect survivors, you can collect data pads to kind of find out, the story of what's going on. You can find synths, and have them join you on your mission, or you bring them back to the Ortago and they become, physicians or engineers and stuff like that. And so you can actually increase the amount of like doctors you have on your team so you can, heal quicker, your Marines and stuff like that. So the stages themselves are pretty big with multiple levels. Like some go into the basements, some go like have, 2-story buildings and stuff like that. So it does vary. And graphically, it looks exactly like you would expect from Aliens, like, shake and bake colony, basically, as Burke calls it. Actually, I think that was Van Leeuwen. But anyways, God, I've seen Aliens too many times. So what you're going to do is when you land, say you're going to do a mission, You go to like the docks. Your drop ship drops you off, and you either have an APC that can carry 5 Marines, or you have a recon style APC that carries 4 Marines. It drops you off. You start exploring the level. There are multiple areas on the stage that you can tell your vehicle to go to. You can also be picked up on those multiple areas, but it can't be anywhere. Like, you can't tell the APC to just go here. It has to be a designated point. And sometimes you actually have to like move things for the APC to actually get there. But the APC will defend the area that it's at. So if aliens are walking around, if a drone is walking around, comes within the line of fire of the APC will gun it down. So while you're controlling your Marines, doing objectives, trying to find things, hiding for cover, things like that, you're walking your Marines around as let's just, for sake of argument, group of 5. You tell them to go over there, they do that. They start walking. If they see an alien that comes in their path, if it, engages them, they'll shoot it. They'll keep walking, though, while they shoot. They won't stop. You can stop them if you want. You can, redirect them, like have them walk backwards. And that will buy you some time. And, of course, there's acid damage and all that kind of stuff. Your Marines have armor points and they have health points. Armor points are nice because you can get an upgrade later that nullifies acid, but health points can be regenerated via health packs in a level, but armor points cannot. So it's a nice little balance, and of course you can upgrade your Marines and all that kind of stuff. So your Marines start out as just, base grunts. They look like your normal Colonial Marines. Once they reach level 3 or 4, they can take a specialty class. There is Sergeant, Heavy Machine Gunner, Sniper, aka Recon, Medic, and Technician. And when your Marine is ready to be upgraded, like when it hits that level and you can actually pick a class for them, you get to choose from 2. So you don't get to choose from all of them. It just gives you 2 options. So you kind of have to pick that one. Then as they level up, you can unlock passive perks like, greater accuracy, meaning they can see further, more armor, more health points, and some stuff that actually attributes to the whole team, like command points can be increased if you have a certain amount of these characters on your team, stuff like that. Obviously, Heavy Machine Gunner gets access to the Smart Gun. Every Marine at a certain level has access to a heavy pulse rifle, a flame unit as a secondary, or a shotgun as a secondary, or a plasma rifle. And the base level pulse rifle is the only one that has the grenade launcher, so you're going to still want to field at least one person with that. So basically, you can upgrade your Marines either by training them on the Ortago, and that takes days, or you take them into the field and they can, do objectives, will level up. Fighting off massive hordes will help them level up and things like that. So you're going to want to, I kind of tended to have an A team and a B team. If I went into a new area, I would send in my B team first to kind of just open up as much as I could, see as much as I can. And then once, they kind of got their asses kicked and everything, I'd bring them back, and then I would bring in my B team, probably reverse, anyways, you get it, like my strong boys, and kind of have them mop up. But of course you can have as fun with it, figure out your own strategies and everything. The cool thing is with the Marines, you can customize how they look. Obviously, when you get them, it's like auto-generated, male or female, and you can change everything. You can customize everything about them: hair color, skin tone, sex, male, female, yada yada yada. And you can also change their name. So what I tend to do is, and I do this in XCOM as well, I just change everybody's names to like, people that are my friends, or, a lot of the BFOP network podcasters were on this go round. I had all the boys from Action in there, had all the boys from the Spees brothers from The Blast from Our Past, Zach, Dustin, and, everybody was in there, and Talking Back, Tim and Dean were in there. And I just kind of figured, I was like, yeah, I'll make these guys this guy that, and everything. And it kind of, because this game does have permadeath, so if your character dies, they're dead. You can bring their dog tags back and kind of get an XP boost and stuff like that. So it kind of, for me, adds like, a little layer of fun to it, a little layer of drama. I actually care about my characters because my Marines, because, they're technically people I know. So of course, I'll make Dustin from Action have a big beard and stuff like that because that's what he has in real life. So it's fun. I try to do that kind of thing. And one aspect I really enjoy that comes from these certain classes is you get to see like what a Colonial Marine medic looks like, that you get to see what a recon person looks like. So, for example, they have a hood on and they have night vision goggles and they kind of have like a cloak on and their armor's dark and everything, but they still have, the Colonial Marine armor. It's a little bit altered and everything. And I just think the developers did a really cool job of keeping the aesthetic of the Colonial Marine armor for the different classes, but also making the different classes stand out. You can also change the color of your, they have a lot of different colors to change your armor to and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed sort of that aspect of it. Graphics wise, so, you zoom into the character models, they don't look particularly great. They're not the best thing I've ever seen, but that's not really the point. They're not meant to be like zoomed in on. They're meant to be seen from a certain, height. There's only so far down you can make the camera go sort of into the team and everything. So they'll still use, the same character models for the cutscenes, and it's serviceable, but it can look pretty rough. And I get it. They're not going to make new models for the cutscenes. This is a small budget studio. This is kind of like the same with Aliens Fireteam Elite, the last one I reviewed. Neither of these titles are like AAA titles. Now that's not to say, that the graphics are bad per se. It's just don't expect it to be, current gen, the best graphics you've ever seen, because that's not really what the game's about. The environments look fantastic. The models are great, from a distance and everything. And I love the fact that, as you move your team, they're aiming their pulse rifles, they're looking around. The animation scene is really natural. The sound is good. You can hear the hesitation in my voice. The music's great. The problem is that, and they've been working on this, the development team's been working on this. You hear the same commands over and over again, over and over and over, ad nausea. I've been playing this since day one, so the day that it launched. The team has been great. They've been on the Reddit. I'm on the subreddit for the game. They've been listening feedback and implementing it. The first patch was massive. This game was damn near broken when it launched, but I pushed through about half of the game till the patch dropped, and they fixed so much stuff in the patch. One of the things they added was the ability to turn off movement commands, because everyone was getting sick of, double time Marines. And you would hear this, you hear it over and over again. You hear it in your sleep. It was bad. But the point I'm trying to make with that is that the dev team seems really committed to listening to feedback and, actually implementing it and hearing what people are saying and everything. And I think the game is only going to get better. Now, missions wise, once you're done with the game, as of this recording, there's no game plus mode, so you can't like re-enter and start a new game with all your upgrades that you had before. They don't have that yet, but I have a gut feeling we might see that in the future. Nothing confirmed, but it's just my gut. You have multiple difficulty settings to play it on. If you're, a trophy whore or an achievement whore, you can have fun with that. Go in and play it on, hard, nightmare, and, etc. And I've played it on basically medium/normal. I didn't play it on the easiest. I played it on the next up, but I'm going to be starting up a new game immediately. Like, I knew right away that this is a multiple playthrough for me. So I just was like, let me get a feel for it. And I'm very much looking forward to a, hard difficulty level. Maybe hopefully another patch will be out again addressing some other things, but they really addressed a lot in the first patch. So, if you haven't picked it up yet, you're better off than you were on day one, like me. So I say the graphics are good. I enjoy the graphics, but yeah, I can see why, they're kind of like, they're almost like Switch level graphics. But again, you're not meant to like zoom into the characters and everything. What I personally like about the look like versus Aliens Fireteam Elite, is that all the Colonial Marines armor is the style from Aliens the movie. Now, if you listen to my Aliens Fireteam Elite review, you'll know that you had to buy a DLC to get those classic armor costume, because that game's supposed to, I think, like be like 100 years after LV-426, Hadley's Hope and everything. So, that makes sense that there would be upgrades to the armor, but listen to my review. I have some critiques of how it looks and everything, and the dropship too. Here in this, because the timeline is supposed to be closer to the Aliens movie, the APC looks exactly like the APC. The dropship looks exactly like the dropship, and their armor looks exactly like their armor, of course, with modifications. You can also get artificial limbs like robotic arms and legs if they get destroyed, but you can actually get your characters out. Your characters can get captured by like a drone and dragged off, and you can chase after them trying to kill the drone and then get your person back. You can get face hugged. You can research an ability to basically extract a facehugger from one of your Marines. But if you haven't researched that or don't take that into the field, your Marine is pretty much screwed at that point. So they do have some fun stuff. There are some story elements where you find some people and you have to decide whether you want to trust them or not. If you do trust them, you're going to bring them back through Otago. But if they're, if they're contaminated, then that would be a bad thing. So there's some interesting story elements to it. But for the most part, you're basically going to be working your way through a level, hiding for cover, shooting at xenomorphs or whatever other enemies are there, cultists or Weyland-Yutani mercenaries. And as you're moving through the level and you're taking damage and you're healing because you have a medic and stuff like that, your Marines are going to get more and more stressed out. You can issue commands to halt that stress. You can they can take medicine that counts towards you can only carry a certain amount of med packs in, and if you actually take the medicine, it counts as a med pack, but that'll lower their stress. If their stress hits 100 and it goes over, it peaks, they will get a trauma. There's various traumas out there, lots of different ones. And they'll affect the character, like how many command points they can have. They'll affect how much arrest will affect them or not affect them and everything. And so you really want to maintain your character's, your Marine's stress. One way to do that is to go into a room and seal it off. And once you're in there, you turn it into basically a rest point / save point. And you can rest up in there and, usually at no cost to yourself, but sealing up a room will cost like a point. They look like little gears. They look like little wrenches. And you can carry only a certain amount in. So if you weld a door shut, it's going to use one of these little tools. They're essentially like tools. You can find more in the level, but, it's not infinite. So you want to sort of be strategic about everything you do pretty much. So if you seal up a room, you can rest. Some time will pass, and you will gain all your command points back, and your Marines will be no more stress and all that kind of stuff. Command points are used to issue orders, like suppressing fire, firing a grenade, firing your shotgun, firing your flamethrower, all your secondary weapons. Those all cost command points. Now, these command points regenerate over time, but you usually have about 5 or 6 to start with. You can get more depending on what perks you pick for your sergeant and everything, or other people too, that can kind of like sort of add to that. But you basically, you have to be strategic with your command points. You don't want to just all of a sudden have an onslaught coming, like a massive onslaught, and then you don't have any command points left, You can set up sentry turrets. You can bring a certain amount of sentry turrets into a mission. You can also find them in the mission. You can set them up. You can direct them as to where they're aimed and everything. You can leave them there if you want. You can, pick them up and move on. You can also, your technician has a drone, and you can use the drone to basically scout areas out. It has a portable, noisemaker. So if you want to put the drone over on the other side of the map and set it off, it could draw the aliens towards it and away from you. You have portable motion trackers that you can also set up, and then set off with the same effect. So you could basically say put one right by your APC, and then if you're basically getting swarmed or something, you can set that off and draw all the aliens towards it, and the APC will just gun them down. So it's really cool. There's a lot of strategy to do. There's a lot of you'll come up with your own strategies. You'll figure out your own play style. Do you want to just barrel through and just shoot everything at sight? Sure, you can do that as well, but it'll be pretty tough. And once the aliens are alerted to your presence in that area, they start sending waves and waves of xenomorphs at you until essentially an onslaught happens. And then basically you got to just hold your ground. You got to hope that you can maybe find a room that maybe only has one door entrance and then just guard it. And as they swarm through, you just unleash hell. But the xenomorphs will mess you up, man. They will fuck you up because that's how they are. But it does a good balance. The game does a really good balance of creating, tension, creating, stress for the player and everything. But also at the same time, it never felt unfair to me. Like if I messed up, and what I would a lot of times do is, if I died and my team got wiped, I would just reload a previous, save point and everything just to get through it. I do think on a harder level, I don't think you can do that. So, I'm saving that experience for like more of a hardcore mode, but, playing it through on the normal mode, I was like, yeah, I just want to get through the game and kind of see the story and everything. But I never felt it was unfair. If I messed up, it was kind of just poor strategy and everything. I was just like, I never was frustrated. Let me just say that. I've never felt frustrated. The fighting queens are a lot of fun. They're just giant bullet sponges, essentially, which is a lot of fun. But, they mix it up with how the place, how engagements are laid out in the stage and all this kind of stuff. And I think the dev team really does a good job of keeping things interesting all throughout the entire game. So let's, get into my verdict. And you got to understand that this game is, I think, for, a very specific type of person. If you like real-time strategy games, if you like XCOM, if you like aliens, but specifically like the Colonial Marine aspect of it, like I do, this is for you. It's really a love letter to Colonial Marines fans, and I appreciate that. And I mean, my God, the Easter eggs are deep. So like your dropship pilot is a character, and you get to know her. Her name's Hunslet. And the funny thing is, the APC was built off of the Hunslet airplane, cargo carriers. Essentially, it basically carries, it drags airplanes behind like a tow truck type of thing. That's what the APC in the movie was based on and fabricated around. But the vehicle that it was fabricated around was called a Hunslet. And then the APC, the dropship pilot her name is Hunslet. So you can tell that this was made by fans, but you can also tell that it was made by a handful of fans and not a massive AAA, studio. And for me, I'm fine with that. Also, the price point reflects that. It's a $40 game. So, go into it, be aware of its limitations, be aware of what kind of game it is. It's not quite XCOM because it's not turn-based strategy. It's still real-time strategy. But if you like that, if that is intriguing to you, then I say check this out. At the very least, wait for it to be $20. I'm sure by the end of the year there'll be a sale. It'll be $20, and by that point there'll be probably multiple patches out. I'm sure it'll be infinitely better than it started, and I played it from get-go, but I also enjoyed it at the beginning. I saw the bugs. I mean, there are a ton of bugs. I mean, my God, but I get it. And the dev team worked their butts off and they patched it pretty quickly with a lot of stuff. So, it's still kind of buggy. I've been reading on Reddit and everything. There's still, a handful of bugs and this and that. I think it's going to take them a while to iron out the kinks because it doesn't sound like a complicated game, but I understand if behind the scenes it is a complicated game because the AI has to think about a lot. Like, the xenomorphs have to not get stuck on things. They have to find the best route to you. Your marine AI does a good job of, getting behind cover and staying there. And they don't really do, stupid shit or anything like that. So, I think at its core, they got everything, pretty much right. It's just there's a bunch of wonky bugs around it, which is why I think I was able to sort of look past those bugs, because the core game itself, I think, is really cool. Story-wise, I can take it or leave it, but I don't also have a problem with sort of making up my own story as I play along. For me, I'm really playing it to have my fantasy realized of controlling a squad of Colonial Marines and just watching them move, watching them clear rooms with their pulse rifles and stuff. This is the stuff that was in my head when I was playing the leading edge, board game, Aliens board game back in like 1989 as a kid. I was like, oh, what do they look like when they're like walking around and stuff and like, clearing rooms, and what would happen if they were fighting other Colonial Marines and not just xenomorphs? So this is kind of like little Corey's, dream come true, yeah, honestly. So I love it. I enjoy it. It's not perfect. It's never gonna be perfect, and it's made for a very specific type of gamer and fan. But if it sounds like it might be up your alley, then you know what? I say check out Aliens Dark Descent. I think there's worse ways to spend $40 these days. So, but hope you all enjoyed this review. Kind of wanted to slot this one in, even though we already recorded our Maximum Overdrive review, and that'll be coming next week, because the bulk of August, Zach's out of town, I'm out of town. I'm going to be doing a road trip with my mom, taking her up to Vancouver, and for her 70th birthday. So we're going to tackle August again like we did last year, where we're going to review a couple of documentaries, kind of have like freeform discussions versus full breakdowns. So I kind of wanted to have a little bit of space in between Maximum Overdrive and Dr. Mordred. So Maximum Overdrive will be coming out next week, and then expect a couple of documentary reviews to come out after that. And if you would like to know prior, in advance to what those movies are we're going to be discussing, then check out Wrap Up After Dark on our Patreon page. It's a Patreon exclusive show that Zach and I do every month. And one of the things we do on that show, besides just sort of talk about things, how things were going for the month and everything, is we also announce the movies that we're going to be reviewing next. We actually usually we unwrap them on air, and it's a surprise to either one of us. This month we knew what we were going to be doing. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on all of that. If you want to check out Wrap Up After Dark, go to patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. That's patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. Over there, we also have the Carpenter Factor that Zach and I are going through John Carpenter's entire filmography from Dark Star all the way up to The Ward. And this month we are on vampires, so that'll be dropping in a few weeks. So, and then next month is going to be Ghost of Mars. We're going to try to have David Irons on that one. So we got that going on over there. And if you'd like to suggest for a movie for us to break down and review for you, we've had plenty of them in the past. The Believers, most recently, thanks to Cam Sully. Then check out our highest tier over on Patreon, and you too can pick us to break down a movie for you. So with all the bells and whistles that come with that. So and as I said earlier at the beginning of the show, you can find all of our links also at podcastingafterdark.com. So thank you all again for listening to me yammer on for about 35 minutes about Aliens Dark Descent. I hope you all like these solo reviews. I enjoy doing them. I have a good time with them. So I'm always surprised at how long I can talk without break. All right, guys. Well, since Zach the Snack isn't here, I'll just have to say, we'll catch you on the dark side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.